What's going on, guys?
So first thing I want to do is check audio stuff. So you guys let me know if things are working. My audio part is kind of done. Oh, echo. Thank you. See, that's why we check it. Yes. Appreciate it, Chris. So we're gonna chill around for about 5 minutes going into the 10 o'clock hour, just to wait for all the stragglers and the whoever's, and see what we can get. Yeah, thanks, Chris. So OBS is kind of funky in that whenever I use my camera as a source, it like freaks out and I can't save any of the scenes and stuff, so I have to make them from scratch every time. And in this case, what I'm gonna do instead is just like put the camera in at the last second, and it adds the microphone from the camera, which is really stupid because it doesn't need to be there. But yeah, let me know if like the music's too loud, if something's going on. I'm happy to make adjustments for you guys. How's everybody doing? Everybody cool? Trying out this like super low latency mode streaming into YouTube, so hopefully I'll be able to talk to you guys a little bit quicker and not like get super lagged down by chat, or at least the time difference between it. Y'all hearing these sweet jams underneath? Ooh. Oof. Right on, Chris. Yeah, so specifically today, oh, now I'm starting to drop frames all over the place. I don't know why. That's freaking me out. Is it just because I'm messing with this? Apparently so. So we'll get into talking more about it when once we really start kicking off, but this is going to be a little different than the usual. Yeah, Tommy, I'm seeing a weird slowdown on my stream. Let's see what I can do about that. It's also glitchy music, but this isn't the right sitch at all. This is a bummer. We'll get it right. Aha. Let's see if I can do that, maybe. I'm not sure what's going on with that part of it, but we'll try. Oh, maybe it's because I'm doing the record. There, hey, we seem to be picking up. If I do that, maybe that'll help me out here. What's going on with this frame buffer? Oh, there we go. Now we're back. That's what it was. I'm recording on OBS and streaming into OBS and running Wig on the same computer. That may be a problem, but I can pull it from YouTube. No worries. Anyways, like I was saying, this is going to be a little bit of a different kind of workflow than, what you might have seen before with like, with most of the guys who will do a stream or a video about programming a tune. This is going to be a bit more in-depth in terms of the way it works. So one of the things I noticed wandering around YouTube and looking at stuff is that there's not a lot of info for the guys who, there's a bunch of videos for like making your, like doing your show file for the very first time. There's a lot of that, like how to, patch a show, and I've done videos like that as well. And then there's a lot of like podcasts and videos about the guys who are doing stadiums and arenas and like big old shows. And yeah, Tommy, I just caught that and did exactly that. So what's going to be different about this one is we're going to be looking at it from kind of that mid-level perspective, from let's say a large club to a small theater. So in the neighborhood of like 600 to as many as 2,000 or 3,000 cap rooms. And we're not going to be going over just getting a song, making the coolest light show we possibly can, and then programming all kinds of stuff in it. There's a bunch of that on the YouTubes, and you guys have seen it. And frankly, it's been done. And I think there's another way that we could do it. And in my case, it's going to be, we're going to start from the very, very beginning. So like you got a call from a band that they want you to design a show for them, program it, and take it on tour. And here are the limitations and the things you're going to have to deal with when you do that. So we're going to be going from all the way ground level up in terms of how you make this happen, including, we're going to be talking about vendors. We're going to be talking about budgets. We're going to be talking about packing trailers. We're going to be talking about cables. This is going to be a multi-part stream series that we're going to be doing. And the reason that I want to do it like this is that I'm not seeing a lot of that content out there for a lot of these guys. And I know that when we come back from this human malware COVID nonsense, that's going to be, one of the first those are going to be the first kinds of places to open, are these clubs and theaters where they can be a little bit more controlled over capacities and people. And there's going to need to, and, a lot of guys are going to be getting their first gigs doing jobs like that. And I want to help you guys get in better shape there. So we're going to be going through every little piece of it. If you saw any of the updates I've been posting last night and the last couple of days, we're about 5 minutes in, so I think we can be ready to get into it. One of the things we're going to be doing is listening to the song that we're going to be using. Vasilis, yes, we are going to be, this is all going to be online. All the stuff is going to be saved. I will also probably be editing out some of the more dull and answering chat in some situations, and I'll be making smaller videos and highlights for that so that you can kind of get more of the little nuggets. But I will also have all the stream parts available for you guys. So we're going to start with actually figuring out what tune we're going to do. And we've gotten a lot of support from some artists, and we're going to be working with one for this whole situation. We're top to bottom with one artist. And we're working with a local band out of Nashville that I know a couple of the guys in. It's a band called Sweettalker. They're fantastic. We're going to be playing their song a lot over the course of the next few weeks and however long this goes. They have been super gracious in supporting the notion of what we're doing today, and they are, they're being cool about copyrights. They're being cool about, doing whatever we want to do with it. And in fact, David Brown, their singer, is going to join us next week, because next week we're going to talk about artist input, and we're going to talk about what limitations you have to work with sometimes when an artist tells you they want to see a certain thing, and it may be completely not what you thought you were going to get. But that's the job. Our job is not to make the prettiest designs that we like. It's to make something that pleases our client, who's the artist, and then looks great for their audience. And 99 times out of 100, nobody knows the audience better than the artist themselves. So that's what we're going to be working with. So the first thing we're going to do is pull up the tunes here, and we're going to listen to this song. I may or may not get in a lot of trouble by playing this, but we're going to do it, and then I'll cut out if I have to. But we are going to, and they should be chill with it because this is what we're doing in the first place. We are going to YouTube. Sweettalker. And these guys are fantastic. So we're gonna give these guys a listen so you can know what it is we're talking about in terms of the song. And then once we get into the then we're gonna jump straight from listening to the song into Wysiwyg so we can kind of start talking about our workflow and how we get things going from here. So I'm gonna turn up the volume on the audio a little bit, and we're gonna have a listen. Let's see if I can find this here video. This is our jam. So we're gonna sit and enjoy for a few minutes.
I remember back when things were new. Just strangers in a game. Oh, your love was easy. You tried to please me, and I traded all for a piece of back then. About the time we both came up for air.
So you can tell we got this great kind of mid-tempo bouncy vibe.
Coming with steady love, and no, it wasn't good enough. I couldn't compare to the one inside your dream. I don't want your love no more, just so tired of the games you play all the
Let me know in the chat what you guys are thinking about this. Because I'm digging the hell out of this song. I've been listening to it a lot. Even just on the release date, it was great.
Yeah, I think about it every now and then. Think about the way things could have been. Still be biting my lip, always losing my grip. And I say it all, I won't say it again, baby. Cry.
Yeah, exactly, Chris. I wanted. Oh, we'll talk about it after. We're just gonna keep jamming.
Don't want your love no more, just so tired of the games you play all the time. You waste to believe what I say. I can read you anyway, baby. I can't wait for you to be on your way. So goodbye. Whatever made you happy, whatever made you sad, I gave it all to you,
All right. Cool, cool, cool. So that's the song we're working with. I'm going to link the video in the description for everybody so you can go back if you want to follow along and listen to it a bunch. We're going to be listening to it a lot, obviously, as you program stuff. One of the things you guys noticed right away is one of the things I'm doing a little different is that I'm deliberately not going with metal, EDM, big flash and trash strobe, where you have a lot of I guess a lot of you get a lot more freedom as that kind of LD about what you can get away with and what you can do. You still have to be in time with music. You still have to be a cohesive show. But with a thing like a song like this, you can't. There's not a lot of. You're not going to be doing a bunch of big ballyhoo explosions of strobes and blinders and stuff. You need to be a bit more tasteful. So that's one of the reasons why I picked it. Also, there's not a lot of stuff that's not EDM and metal. And I'm the first guy who wants to do metal in particular, but also EDM stuff all the time. And, it's just, there's more music than that out there. And, we got to do a lot more, we got to do a lot of pop shows sometimes. And, pop is still pop. It's popular. There's a reason why we do it. I've done a few metal tours, but all my big stuff has been pop, jam, acoustic, kind of middle of the road adult music. And there's not a lot of that out there for how to design for it. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing. So one of the things we're going to be looking at is what the design is and what we're starting with. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is start from zero in terms of the design per se. What I mean is, like most LDs, I have a template. I have a plan for, I have a built-in plan, and we're gonna look at it. I've talked about it on the stream, the last stream I did, and it's all through the videos about the patch and all that. I'm not gonna go like super deep into all that per se, but we are gonna talk about it. Obviously, we have to. So one of the things that we're gonna start with, and this again because we're dealing with large club theater kind of situations, is we are not building a flown package. This is going to be based on a ground package. This has, so if you're thinking about a band who's in those kind of venues, let's say, a band like Sweettalker or the tour I had this spring where I was with American Authors and Magic Giant, that tour was 2 buses and each bus had a trailer behind it. And we had to put everything in those 2 buses and 2 trailers. So the lighting package went in there, all the audio went in there, and audio for that one was crazy. All the backline, all the merch, all the everything in 2 14-foot trailers. So we're going to be thinking about that again. I'm going to be going with pretty much that exact scope. 2 trailers, or roughly 1 box truck. But you have to understand that you're not just taking the lighting in that. You're taking the lighting, the audio control, like consoles and mics and stuff like that, and backline and merch. You have to have room for all of this in your space. And we're going to be talking about all of it, because one of the things, especially as the lighting guy, you are usually first in, you are usually last out. So your gear is usually on the tail of every trailer. So you're usually the guy who's getting your gear out and making sure the trailers get packed at the end of the night, because you got to make sure there's enough room for your stuff the way it's supposed to be. So you got to think a lot about trying to shoehorn some stuff in where you wouldn't normally have to do it, but you're going to think about it. A lot of guys go for like carts, and I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do that. We're going to be talking to Dave from Sweettalker about what he wants to see for his band, and we're going to design around his thoughts and ideas. So, going with a cart situation is an option. Going for going for just some stuff on some pipes is an option. Pipes are pretty easy to stash as long as they're not more than 14 feet long. Going for pre-rig truss, it can work. It can also be tricky depending on spacing, because pre-rig truss takes up a lot of space and it's got wheels and it's got things. So usually when you're doing a show like this with a band that's got backline and everything that goes along with having bands on tour and not just an artist with, you know, a DJ rig or a hip hop artist where you just have to worry about playback, for the most part. There's you know, many different ways of doing it, but for the most part you're seeing, like, for a lot of pop acts, for a lot of hip hop, for a lot of EDM, it's effectively playback control and then lighting video and merch. In our case, we're talking about backline. We're talking about, you know, consoles for monitors and front of house, all the things. So that's going to be a thing you have to think about. You have to think about how to make it fit. You got to think about weight. You got to think about what you're going to do for, you know, for holding these things down. If you're on pipes, you got to think about transporting sandbags, you know, all that kind of crap. So we're going to get into it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how we're going to design this. So we are going to design in good old cast Wysiwyg version release candidate 45 or 45, whatever it is, whatever they call it. And this is Wysiwyg. We talked a bit before in prior streams about having a template for your clone rig, and that's what we've got here. This is my clone package. We'll go quickly through it. Let me try and do this a bit better. Oh no, you wanted to. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. So in my template page, I've got, we'll just hide it all and we'll go piece by piece through it. Get out of here, guys. I've got some spots all around here. I'm using the Chauvet Maverick Mark III because they're awesome. For beams, I'm using the Martin Mac Axiom because they're awesome, and I've got a bunch of those hiding all over the place. For wash, I believe I'm using the R3 wash from Chauvet. Kind of depending on vendors, if I'm doing like a full design, the vendor will determine what it is I'm going to do. You know, if I get assigned, if I'm told I've got to work with a vendor and they don't have the R3s, they've got the ZW37s from Elation, well, you just swap it in. You got to work with what they've got. We got some LEDs. These, I believe, are Paladin panels in this show. Strobe Atomic 4K LEDs. There's a bunch of them. This is the template show I use for everything. So I will use this exact template file to clone any country shows I do, pop, metal, EDM, pop, you know, jam shows. So I've got everything on here. This is not to say we're going to use it, and it's not to say that every song has to use all of it. So the song we heard, Goodbye from Sweettalker, can pretty much guarantee you we're not going to be touching the strobes. You know, that's just the nature of the thing here. Bringing up those sweet tunes again, so we have something to listen to and talk. Blinders, got blinders for days. I believe these are DTW 350s from Elation. They're great. Front of house, we moved to the front of house truss. This is the most important truss in your show. You can do an entire show with just your front of house truss if you have to. If everything else goes completely to hell, you've got your main lighting. This is how your people see the band. You know, light the money is a pretty common phrase, and your band is the money. So we've got the wash. I've got spots for specials. I believe that's more Mark IIIs. And then I have the four-banger versions of the DTW for audience and crowd and retinalABUSE, if you follow that kind of thing. So put it all together. You got a pretty sweet package up in the air. We'll zoom and see it. That's the whole thing. You can see all this stuff here that I've got. If I get rid of the template truss, makes all the lights go away. You can see these boxes here. That is because I am working with a venue I made myself. It is a nice little version of the Stageline Sam 750 based on their dimensions. So the space between The walls here is all correct. The wings are all correct. It's off by a little over a foot in that there's 7-inch steel, like the bars that hold up the roof are right in here, and I just didn't do it. I'm more focused on getting the thing to look like I'm what I need it to do, and less of what it really is going to be like down to the inch. I'm not a draftsman by any stretch of the imagination, although I respect those guys. So that's the venue we're looking at. Let me see if I can turn on my environment. Ooh, it's nighttime in this environment. You can look up there and you can see some sky. But so here's our stage with all the bits and bops. I've got a lot of stuff here for the SAM that you're not seeing. So in the back here, see if I can zoom out so it doesn't look super funky. In the back here, I've also added the crossover so you can work. I've also added wing wall truss, which is hard to see with the environment turned on, so we're going to turn it off. So there's a truss. And I've also added some wing scrims, so if you're doing a festival, you're going to see something like that. I added a mother grid just for kind of fun, but we're not going to be using the mother grid or the scrims or the walls. You see on a lot of festivals, this will be, you'll hang LED walls here, but we're not getting into that. We're just talking about the lighting package for what's going out there. So we're going to take all that stuff out. And the first thing we're going to be doing is putting in a band. This band I know is a 4-piece band. And then for this particular tune, they added a couple of horns. And I think I'm going to add that in just because I think it'll look really cool to have them. And we can get started. We can jump right in and kind of add where they are. So we're going to go into our wireframe mode. And one thing we're going to talk about in Wig from the very beginning is what's called the missing coordinate. And in this case, it'll be the Z for height, because we're looking down over here. We're in the plan view. So this is top down, like looking at it like you're looking at a sheet of paper, designing it. The floor, if I go to a front view, the floor is here at 0. But the floor of the stage is at 6 feet. So we're always going to have to keep that in mind, that 6 feet is going to be our 0 for stage, band, gear, all that kind of stuff. I know a lot of guys who will just take that whole environment and drop it down so that the floor of the stage is 0 feet, so you can have 0 zeros. It doesn't really matter as long as you know which one you're doing and, stick to it. And also, if you export into a DWG, sometimes it can mess with you. So we're going to start with putting in a band. I think I have a temp band. Yeah, I haven't really touched it. So we're going to do a whole new thing. So we are going to start with a layer. One thing you can't do in Wysiwyg that kind of bugs me is build a layer group before putting layers in it. You have to have the layer you're going to put into the group before you can give it a group. It's a little funky, but they have a reason for doing it that way. I'm not going to fault them for that. So first thing, very, very first thing we're going to do is File, Save As. You're going to see Desktop. You can see some stuff I'm working on here. Keanu Sleeves is a fun one coming up. I'm doing a lot of my designs now, like all the design videos I'm doing. I'm picking shorter songs mostly because, like, looking at the YouTube metrics, like, the view count just plummets for those design videos. And at the end of the day, really, that's a portfolio for me more than it is a video for you guys. But we're going to start a new thing. We are going to call it Sweettalker. And that's going to be our new project here in Wysiwyg, so that we can be rocking and rolling. So first thing we got to do is put in the band. So we're going to start a new layer. I've got the layer database open here. You got a bunch of stuff you can do with your layers. It's cool. But here under this plus sign is new layer. Add a new layer. We're going to call it, the very first thing we're going to do is the drum riser. Drum riser. Cool. So now I've got it here with this thing selected. We're going to make the drum riser into a group, which is this guy here. It says new group. And we're going to have a new group, and we're going to call it Sweettalker underscore band, so that I know what's going on here, that I know that that's the band. It's not the lighting package. It's not the, the gear. It's the band. So we're going to put in the band. And so now we've got to activate. You can see here on the side of the layer database, the one with the green check mark is the one that is your current layer. So you need a drum riser. You can either click on this check mark up here to set current layer, or double click, and you are now working in the drum riser layer. So we are going to keep trucking along here. First I want to do, because I know I'm putting stuff on the stage floor, we're going to put in our missing coordinate. That is this little guy here. I know he's a teeny tiny little icon. Let me see if I can make those icons a bit bigger. I'm not exactly sure where that is in this thing. Is it an application? Toolbars. File options. We're going to try and find this real quick. I know there's a way to do it. Cancel. Okay. Uh-oh. There we go. Oh, could have been bad. Document options. Now, is it under view options? Nope. There's a way to do it. I'll figure it out at some point. If I do it that way, toolbars. No, we go back into that. There's a way in. If one of you guys is a Wysiwyg expert, please let me know. We'll get it on there. And we will make that happen. One of the things we're going to do right now, because I actually forgot about it, because I'm a silly goose, is I'm going to real quick throw some posts up on the interwebs so that everybody knows we're here. Share to a group. We're live. I know you guys can't see this, but we're just going to be real quick knocking out some sharing so that everybody knows where we are. Making them, yeah, I 100%. I was hoping maybe I could get away with not having to do that, but it's all right. We'll, as long as I'll make sure that I'm telling you guys exactly what I'm doing as we go about it. There we go. So let's put in a drum riser. We need to set our missing coordinate. That is here, missing coordinate. And this is the CAD coordinate. Because we are on top-down mode, the missing coordinate in this case is going to be Z, because we have X left to right and Y upstage to downstage. So the missing coordinate in our case, because we're going on that 6-foot floor, is going to be 6 feet. 6 feet. Cool. Boom. Now it's time to put in our riser. We're going to go over here to riser. I know that you can get items in there for drum risers, and you can import a DWG, and it's like much more visually accurate. But in the case of what we're doing here, I want to keep it simple so that when I share this, because I'm gonna be putting these files up for you guys if you have Wysiwyg or MA and you can look at it, is to make it simple. So we're just gonna go with a simple riser. We're gonna make a simple, bog standard. What you're gonna see on tour is an 8x8 drum riser, usually at 2 feet or 4 feet high. We're gonna go 2 feet for now. If we make a change and want to do it 4 feet, we will. But for right now, this is what we're gonna get, and we're gonna hit OK. And then you can place them wherever you want to place them. This is a really, really big stage. And, for this band, they're not really going to be in that kind of size all that often. But what we are going to do is we're going to put the drum riser dead center, and we're going to put it starting at 20 feet upstage of the downstage edge. That's plenty of space. Large clubs, theaters, you're going to see about that much space. You might get a 48-foot wide deck and 32 feet deep, sometimes more, sometimes less, but we're going to put it in here. Boom. Now we got the drum riser. If you go to a isometric view, you can see there's a drum riser hanging out there. One thing that happens with Wysiwyg is you've got the different colors for all of your groups. I use white for a lot of stuff because, you know, I don't need to make changes. Like with my fixture groups, I'll make changes all day. You know, my camera stuff and my motion stuff is always red. My rigging is always bright orange. Like, know that it's rigging. But one of the things that happens when you do that is that your riser will also be super, super white. And we're not going to do that, so we're going to make a quick change there. We're going to go back into wireframe mode. Select our riser. You can right-click and go to Properties. Right-click on the riser, and View Options is going to be our thing, or Properties. In the case of Wysiwyg, I like to use shortcuts, so it's Alt-Enter to get you into Properties. And then we're going to go to Appearance. And Appearance is how we're going to be doing this. So we're going to pick all of these. We're going to go to Custom Color. And we're going to make it black, but not all the way black, because nothing in the real world is as black as can be. It's usually some variation on a very dark gray. So we're going to hit OK. And now if we look at it again, it's still there. It's still black. So now we've got a 2-foot 8x8 drum riser with a skirt around it. And that's really what we're trying to make happen. So that's good. And now we need to put in a drummer. I like to do each of these items in their own layer in the group of the band, just to be able to move them around and make edits to them without having to, you know, affect the entire group at the same time. Sometimes that bites you, sometimes it doesn't. In my case, I'm just going to do it the same way I always do. Sweettalker band, we're going to call this drummer. And one of the options when you set a new layer is to make current. So I'm going to check that because I do want to be working on that. Layer drummer already exists. So we're going to do Sweettalker drummer. And I typed in this silly acronym they use sometimes. Sweettalker drummer. Cool. So we've got now we need to add in a drummer. So very first thing we're going to do is change the missing coordinate again, because now we're not at 6 feet onto the riser. We're at 8 feet because we added 2 feet for that drum riser. So we're going to make this 8 feet to the drum riser. We're going to go into the library browser. Item set to full black. Wig doesn't process any footprints on it. Yep, that's 2. You know, we do want to make this thing look right. So we're going to do it with some dark gray because I think it looks good. But we're going to go to people and mannequins. Mannequins. I'm not 100% sold on the mannequins in Wysiwyg, but it's what I got, so I'm going to use it. With musical instruments. Sitting at drums. The drummer's a guy I went to college with. He's a fantastic dude. He's an awesome guy. His name's Chris Heaton. And I know that for this band, I'm pretty sure he's playing a 4-piece. So we're going to use a 4-piece kit. Double click on 4-piece, and there it is. Now we can look at a drummer. And put him where you expect a drummer to go. You expect him to be dead center, and then just a little bit upstage of the drum riser, because you got to put microphones and stuff in there. And then, you know, that front edge is also where water bottles and jumping guitar players go. So we'll put him right there. And then now that we've placed the object, it's still letting us place it more and more and more. So you got to finish placing the object. You can right click and hit finish library item, or you can just hit F and you'll pop out of that. One thing that I do a lot in Wysiwyg and in MA is save. Save some more. We've talked about this. Every time I do a big change, like add in the band, I'm going to save all the time. Because it's a smart idea. It keeps you out of trouble. You can get into trouble sometimes if you try and like save while switching between CAD and live mode. You know, don't do that. Just, you know, be reasonable. So let's get into adding the rest of our band. So we're going to go to musical instruments, standing, and now we've got the rest of this band. So first things first, we're gonna change our missing coordinate again. We're going to 6 feet high. Pow. And we're gonna start with you can kind of see a little preview of what these guys look like here. So you've got 2 guitar players. We're gonna go with guitar player 1, and that's gonna be our singer right up in the front. I know he plays guitar as well. So we're gonna park him right about there for now. Hang out there, dude. You're a good guy. Then we're gonna have guitar player 2. Guitar player 2 is, when you think about setting up a band, usually your people who aren't your front man are just a little bit behind. They're not usually dead in line, but they're not like far away. And we're gonna put him at 18 feet out because that seems like it makes sense. We'll put him there. And actually, I made a boo-boo, and you'll see it, and we'll fix it. But it's an easy way to go about things. Then we got to get our bass player. Bass player, we're going to park him here. Bass player is usually chilling in the back because they want a lot of room to run around and do awesome stuff. And then if we remember from looking at the video and hearing the song, once again, if you're new over here, the song is Goodbye by Sweettalker. Link will be in the description, so go check that out for sure. Listen, give them a follow. They're awesome guys, and they're a great sounding band. But in this case, in this tune, they've got some horns, so we're gonna add them. So we're gonna add a little horn section over here behind this guitar player. We're gonna add a trombone player. We're gonna add a sax player. And we're going to add a trumpet player. And we're going to park them all next to each other, hanging out, having a good time. Because, that's what you do with the horn section. You park them and everybody's having a good time. So that's our horn section, and they're awesome. So, now, no social distancing, not at all. Not in this case. It's pretend world. We're acting like we're all working again and behaving. So you can see that as I've been putting all these guys in, I never changed the layer. So I've got Sweettalker drummer, and I need to fix that because I want to have each member of the band in their own layer. So if I need to play with them individually, I can. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So new layer, Sweettalker GTR1, Sweettalker GTR2, Sweettalker bass, and Sweettalker horns, because all the horns guys hang out together all the time. So now we're gonna put each guy in their own proper layer. So select the guitar 1, Alt-Enter to pull up properties, go to General, and then you can select where he goes. We're going to select guitar 1, hit OK. Select guitar 2, move him into guitar 2. And we're going to knock these out, go to bass, and then all the horn players, because the horn sections are always hanging out together, they get to be one group. And save. So now we've got a band. If we go to Shade of View, you can see everybody here. There's our band. So this is going to be what we're going to be working with for the duration. We'll probably be moving things around as we go, making sure that there's enough space and, stuff for everybody. But we'll go back to wireframe and kind of keep organizing. We're going to look at this guy again because I saw something interesting here. Now, so one of the things about the models in Wysiwyg, particularly for the mannequins, is that I can't control the torso versus the legs versus the head and make them look like humans, even though they're mannequins. You get a lot of control over parts of the guitar, but you don't get a lot of control over the mannequin. There are ways to go about it, and you can end run around it, but we're not doing that right now. We are just rocking and rolling and getting through things. So now we get to talk about Backline. Backline's a thing. Backline is here. We have to think about everything that's going to be on stage, and that includes the backline and the instruments and stuff. Backline. Now, I don't remember if there's a lot of guitar amps in here, so we're just going to put amp. Nope, they don't really have that kind of stuff. So we can make guesses and we can work with that without having to do too much. So we're just going to make a few more risers. And we're going to do a little bit of research and find out what we're going to work with. So if we go up here, we're going to go to Google. And we're going to look up let's say we're going to have a Fender Twin Reverb for Guitar 1. So let's look at a Fender Twin Reverb. And this is what we're going to look at. Twin Reverb is an awesome amp. No thanks to sign up for the thing. But what we're going to look for is specifications. Dig around specs. And we're going to look for size. Size. Measurements. Height, width, depth. It is 19.87 inches high. We'll call it 20. 26.5 wide. We can do 26.5 wide. And 10 inches deep-ish. Again, we're not trying to be perfect draftsmen on this kind of situation. We want it to be correct in feel. So like, unless you're in like a really, really like CAD heavy situation where you're making moving stages and custom set pieces and like you really do need to know, you're not going to get burned by adding 0.13 inches to make just your life easier. So yeah, that's how that goes for me. Sweettalker Backline. We're going to use a riser to do this because the risers seem to work the best. So our width is going to be 20 inches. Our depth is going to be 10 inches. Our height, I need to fix that, 26.5 inches. So I need to switch this around. This needs to be 26.5 inches. This needs to be 20 inches. Hit OK. That looks an awful lot like a guitar amp. And we're going to put it right next to the drum riser here. Pow. Now we got our guitar amp. If we look at isometric, make sure it doesn't look super ridiculous. Nope, there it is. It's a guitar amp. And for guitar player number 2, we're just going to copy paste. And we're going to put him over here. The horn players can hang out in between. And you know what? Since we're here, horn guys, you're going to go in between. You're going to go here. And then we got a bass amp. Bass amps are a little bit different. So it's time to go back into Bass Town. And we're going to say, because it's a small band, they're traveling light, he's not going to be carrying a full, 8x10 monster cab. So we're going to go Ampeg 4x10 cab. And look, there's a bunch of them. So this is what we're talking about. This is our guy right here. So let's go to Ampeg's thing. Here's our dimensions. Cool. So I'm going to pull these dimensions over here so I can see them, and I'll type them in and add them. So we're going to make another riser. The width is 24 inches wide. Depth, 19 inches deep. Height, 30 inches high. Okay. And bass players always want to have their amp right behind them. So there it goes. So this is our basic backline. We're going to go shaded view so you can see it. We got to do the thing again with the backline. So we can do this here, I believe. If I do this right. Yeah, we can just make them black. And in fact, we will make them custom and not all the way black. Again, because nothing in the world is actually all the way black. It's always a really dark gray. So now we have our band. And if we add our band and our template lighting truss, you know, anywhere else you could put on a concert this way. There's a show. You know, punt it and go. But we're gonna be doing a lot more than that. So we're gonna save. And then when you're a band this size, you're not gonna be seeing a lot of video walls to, you know, put the name of your band up there. So you want to have, you know, you want to have a backdrop. I'm going to add that in. I'm not going to go about editing and making the backdrop now. I'll do that in another time, so that you guys just don't have to see me badly using GIMP. But we're going to put a backdrop in. And that's going to start with going back to wireframe and a top view. So you got all this trusses here. One of the trusses I always have in my show, if I can make it editable, there we go, is this guy here. If we just hover over, truss, layer, backdrop, LED wall truss. There's our backdrop. It's currently sitting at 40 something high. Yeah, it's going to be good for us. If we go to a front view, we can look at it all. We're going to turn off all the truss except for that one. And there it is, way up there. So let's see where in space it is. It is at 48 feet high, 52 feet upstage, and 32 feet, negative 32, because it's 32 feet by 32, like all the way across, so it's 64 foot wide. We're going to make a surface, and we're going to make a new Sweetwater band. We're going to make a new layer in there that is Sweettalker backdrop. So we're going to make our backdrop, and we're going to do that by making just a surface. A surface. So let's turn that off for just a second here. We're going to hit A for abort. Thank you. So we want to make sure that we put it on this backdrop. So if we go to top view, you can see that where this center is, typically when you do a backdrop, you hang it off of either the front or back quarter of the truss. We'll do it at the front. So at 51 feet 6 inches is where we want this to live. And we know from looking here, so at 51 foot 6 is going to be our missing coordinate. So if we go to the front view, put in a missing coordinate of 51 feet 6 inches. So now let's make a surface. And the backdrops I've worked with before are usually 40 by 30. If you're in, you know, that kind of size or scope of act. So we're going to do exactly 40 by 30. 20 wide. 20. Let's say, oh, I can't remember exactly what that is. So we are at a Z of 48, so we need to be at 18 feet. And then just make it a 0. Bam. And then you hit F to finish your surface, and now we got a surface. And if we did it right, we got a big old backdrop. It's also currently bright white, but we will deal with that further down the line once I get the artwork for that, and I'll make a thing. Save, because saving is always the most important thing you can do. Okay. So now we'll go back to our main big view. And you can see we've got our drum riser, we've got our backline, we've got everything here. And now the next thing would be design, but it's not really. You gotta now it's time to start thinking about what the show is. So you're dealing with, you got to start thinking about what you're going to put in your design before you necessarily make it. And part of that is figuring out what vendor you're going to have. In the case of this show, because it's a company I work with a lot and I know their gear very well and I know what they're going to have, we're going to use Christie Lights. They're based in Canada, but they got offices all over the world. And we're going to pull up their website and look through some of the stuff they've got, so we can see what it is we're dealing with. So we're going to pull up the website for Christie Lights. Go to rental equipment, North America, because that's where I am. And now we get to start looking at their lighting fixtures. They have a ton of really cool stuff. They don't have, there's a lot of stuff that you would think would be like basic stuff. They go just a little bit differently. So like they are a heavy Martin house, so that you're not going to see Roby. You're not going to see GLP aside from X4 bars and JDC ones, which of course they have because everybody has them. And we may or may not be using that. We're gonna find that out when we have the meeting next week with the band and find out what it is they want. But we can start talking about what it is that Christie Lights carries, so we can kind of start getting that in our head. They've got Martin Era 800 Performance, a complement of all the Vipers, all the Encores, the Mac 3s, which are a bit older, and those are your big profile lights. For beams, they've got kind of the traditionals. They got the Platinum Beam, they've got the Sharpie, they've got the 360i from Elation. As far as the design goes for this show, probably not going to see a lot of beams get used. This band is much more about a vibe and a feel, and you're going to see a lot more profile fixtures with gobos, and you're going to see big beams. So we're going to go to the hybrids. They got the Mac Axiom Hybrid, my favorite little baby hybrid fixture. It doesn't weigh much. It's bright. It does a lot of cool things. I anticipate we're going to be seeing a fair bit of these on here because I can go kind of narrow if I want to, but they also got a great gobo set. They've got some great everything. So we'll look at our wash fixtures. You can get a lot of work done with a wash fixture on a floor package you bring with you. You can get, if you pick the right one, you can zoom them in pretty tight and get a good narrow like beam. Roby in particular is famous for this, but you can do it with a lot of fixtures. And then also you can add extra colors and, little flavors from all over the place. So expect to see something doing the job of a wash. And of course they've got their collection of GLP stuff. Let's go to LEDs. They've got LED pars. Don't sleep on an LED par. If budget has you just super tight and you need to have something and it's like, man, I wish I had these 8 wash fixtures to put on top of a truss so that I could do some cool, big spread out looks. Check with your vendor for the price of those 8, for cheaper than those 8 wash movers, you might get, you might get a vendor to be just fine to have these 16 LED pars that nobody's rented in a long time, and they need to take it out on the road and they need it to make some money for them. And they might let it out for, a song and a sandwich, so that you can make 2 or 3 like ACL looks, which gets you most of the way to where you want to be. I did that on a tour I did a couple years ago. I was the tech for a guy named Paul McAdams for Good Charlotte's tour in 2018. And I was also operating for the direct support band, Sleeping with Sirens. And I wanted to add a little thing in that was kind of for the support band, to give them a little something that's their own. And so the vendor was Christy Lights actually, and they were super cool about, for like very little money, let me take some 6-pars out, and I got to stick them on some truss towers, and we were able to get a unique look that was just for that act, and that little bit of flavor goes a really long way sometimes. So don't sleep on a LED par. Cyclights LED battens is going to be our next move. You've got all the options in the world here. You're going to see a ton. There's, the Paladin panel, which I like a bunch. It's a great, it's a great alternative to a Solaris Flare or, whatever. Color Force 2 is a fantastic batten. The Color Force is ubiquitous. They're all over the place. They've also been rebranded as Elation's Color Chorus. They behave very, very similarly. The thing with the original Color Force, you can see it here, is that excuse me, it's like a block of pixels, and all the different pixels do different things. With the Color Force 2, it's much more homogenized, so it's like a much more solid beam on each pixel, which is awesome because you can point that at the crowd and it looks a lot more cohesive and a lot more thought out than a whole lot of pixels, shoved out at your face. And it just, you can get a lot more done that way. And then we got to be thinking about blinders, obviously. Be thinking about the DTW, be thinking about all these different kinds of blinders you can use. Putting blinders in a tour rig is awesome sometimes because depending on what you get, you can put them all over the floor, point them up at your band, and get a really cool moody vibe for certain tunes and certain effects. And then obviously we've got strobes, all stuff you've seen before, the Atomic 3K, the Protron 3K from Elation, and, the new standard of the JDC1. I don't expect there to be JDC 1s on this tour, again, because we're going to be thinking about budgets. We're not going to be going crazy and going, oh, this has got to be done on the super cheap. But JDC 1s are expensive, and they're expensive for a reason. They're real popular, and everybody wants them. So, sometimes you got to think about other ways of getting around that. And you can get around that with a Paladin panel real easy. The only thing you can't do with the Paladin that, you can't with the JDC 1 really is have the tilt control. So you think about that and go, okay, that's a little restriction, but it's not a big deal. When you're touring, you are going to take more than likely, you're going to take a hazer or a, smoke machine out with you. You got to think about what that is. You got to talk to your client. You got to talk to your artist ahead of time. Some artists don't like having a lot of haze around them. For them, they feel like it affects their voice. It makes them cough. They don't like the smell, which is, a common thing. So you need to have these conversations with your artist before you make your design, because if you put together this whole big design that relies on a really, really heavy fog so that you can have really cool beam patterns in the air with gobos, and you design all this and you prep it and you build it and you got it in the trailers, and you go to the first day of production rehearsals and the artist goes, hey man, I really hate the haze. Just like, don't use much of that at all, please. Well, all of a sudden, your face is turning red because now you've got to think about how am I going to redo all this design work and all this programming that I've done, because the artist doesn't want to see haze. So you got to be thinking about it. But you're going to look at a lot of things, and a lot of them are real simple. A lot of them are not. You're going to see a lot of standards out in the world. You're going to see a Radiance Hazer a lot. You're going to see a Unique. With Christy Lights, you see Unique more often, but they're not super common. I happen to like them. I think they're great. And you're going to see DF50s. You need to be thinking about what kind of hazer you're going to take on the road, also based on the room. For example, a DF50 is going to be an oil-based hazer, and a Radiance is going to be a water-base. And, water-base is going to be more often than not your preferred. Your venues aren't going to like oil-based tasers. They look better, I think, but they also gum up air conditioning systems, and they can mess with fire suppression. And a lot of venues won't let you do it, and they won't let you do it at all. Hey, Cedric, good to see you, man. Glad you made it. You know, Atmosphere MDG is a different thing because it's a hazer, and then they add CO2, so it's a really interesting look. Some venues have a couple of those, and that's what they insist you use. Sometimes you get to use yours, sometimes you don't. But you also need to think about that in terms of transportation, because you're not going to be just taking a hazer. You got to take the fluid for it. You got to take, you know, all the things. You have to worry about keeping track of that. So just, you know, be thinking about that when you're planning. Know what your tour routing is, and be flexible, be willing to change if you have to. Some artists hate the smell of a radiance hazer. And I can't blame them. I'm not fond of it either, you know, especially if it's not like perfectly maintained. It can stank. There are ways around that. If you call up a company here in the Nashville area called Froggy's Fog, they make scented additives that you can just kind of drip into the juice tank, and, you know, make it not smell so bad. You can get all kinds of things. They think of it for, like, you know, they do a bunch of stuff for like haunted houses and stuff, but they get all kinds of stuff from nice scents, like, you know, vanilla and, you know, flowers and stuff, all the way to damp, you know, ugly stuff. And then they added in hemp, and that's a fun one. I've heard stories and heard about guys who work at shows where, you know, we'll be frank, people smoke a lot of pot at some of these shows, and sometimes the police don't like that. Sometimes the venues don't like that. And sometimes the band is all about it and wants to support people doing whatever they want to do at the show. So you get the lighting guy with the big smoke machines, and they add the hemp scent into the juice and blow it all over the venue, and suddenly it all smells like that. So everybody's having a good time. You know, you can set a mood with that kind of stuff. So, you know, be aware of your options. Look into your vendors when you're getting hired for these things. If the client has a relationship with a vendor that they don't want to mess with, if you have a relationship with a vendor you like and the client's willing to work with you, great, you know what you're getting into. But sometimes the artist has a relationship, and, you know, sometimes it's a package deal. Like for the American Authors Tour I did this spring in January and February, everything in the production came from Brown Note out of Denver, and they're fantastic. And the reason they went with that is because they are a complete turnkey production house. They had all the audio consoles, all the wireless, all the audio, everything, and then they also had all the lighting. And they were very generous about giving us a place to set up and rehearse, and, you know, they're fantastic. So you got to know that going in. Know what you're working with. So that is kind of the vendor side. We're going to be going with Christie Lights mostly because I know them, and I know that everything that Christie has in their inventory is also in Wysiwyg. So it was a little bit of a design or a choice for you guys on the stream. Also a little bit of a choice for me, knowing their guys and having a good relationship with them. So yeah, that's going to be our jam. Things to know about Christie Lights that's a little bit different. One of the things, you know, when you talk about tour packages and you talk about ground packages, you talk, and you've seen, you know, if you watched Christian doing his video about his walkthrough of the rig he had out with Lewis the Child, he had a lot of Tyler Green Trust GTs turned up sideways, and you put a base plate on the bottom, tip it up, and put a ton of lights in it, and they can live in there. And then at the end of the night, you put the wheels back in, tip it over, out the door. Christie does not use Tyler GT truss. They have their own thing. It's called F-type track truss, which is a really cool, you know, kind of variation on GT that they have manufactured just for them. And instead of, like, if you think about a regular truss, so if I pull up just any regular truss, there's all these, we'll pick something that's a bit more simple to work on. We'll pick just a 12-inch. So if you're looking at a truss, you can see there's like, all these crossbars and cords of the truss, and that's where your attachment points are. Tyler GT has a similar thing. For F-Type, it's a little bit different because what you do is load up this track with these little carriages, I think is what they call them, and they are just like a little wheeled track thing with alignment pins so you can lock them into place, and then you hang from that. So it's real easy to move it around and make little minute adjustments. I think the holes are only like an inch or two apart, so you're able to do a lot of really really interesting layouts of the fixtures on your truss. You got to keep in mind with F-Type that they do not like to sit vertical all that well. They make a base plate for it, and that's great, but they don't really have the mounting points where you think they should. Those little alignment pins are not really weight bearing. And you can get into a lot of trouble with that. And you have to do some like really awkward stuff sometimes, like, put in weird pipe. I think they have a center pipe where you can lock it in and then you can attach fixtures that way. But you just have to know it. It's a little bit different. You can see right here, it's 7 feet 10 inches. It's not 8 feet or 10 feet. It's 7 foot 10. But we are going to use it because it's a good way of you can get a lot of things done. But if we end up again, one of the things with this is that we still don't know what the design is. We're going to be doing this as we go. We had Vipers vertical on this. Nothing but trouble. Exactly, Chris. They can, especially with a Viper. Vipers are huge. Vipers are big, thick boys. I would never put a Viper. I don't want to hang a Viper vertical anytime, but I understand that you have to sometimes. So we're going to be going through and looking at our fixtures, and you got to think about weight. You got to think about all these things. But this is what we're looking at. We may make a decision that we want to, if you want to go with a budget and say, okay, we're going to use Christie lights for all the things, but hey, Christie, we'd love you to sub-rent, 6 sticks of 8 or 10 foot GT truss for us. They can do that. They're happy to be working, and they're good people and they'll work with you. So just kind of, make sure you know your options and explore your options. It's going to cost you more. So if you're dead set on, I want to have Tyler GT truss on this rig, and you're working with a vendor that doesn't have it, you're going to pay more because they got to cross run it. So they're going to pass that cost on to you. In our case, if we do it, we'll probably end up on F-Type, and I'll show you how you do it. It's not so bad. The other option, you can always just do pipe and base. They've got it down here. Where would I find it? Ground support, I believe. They've got all kinds of stuff. They got these double dance towers, which are really kind of slick. You can put a wheel board on them, and then you have this really crazy fine adjustment. I think they use like Unistrut in there for it, where you can put pipes just about anywhere you want in that thing. They're a good option. That's what I used for Good Charlotte. At the very top of this guy here in the back, I put those little, I was telling you, I had some LED bars. We stuck them on the top there and sent them on their way. But you can also go pipe and base and sandbags. You can do, all the things you got to do sometimes. You got to make it get done. And as we go on, we'll talk to our artist about what they want to do. So that is kind of the deal in terms of the vendor we're going to be dealing with. You can go to christielights.com and play around. They show their entire rental inventory, which is awesome. And knowing that we're working with Christie, you got to think about what they have for consoles and dimmers and distro and stuff. Console, we're going MA all the way. You know, if I'm taken out on tour, I'm going to probably want to take an MA2 Lite with me and then a command wing as a backup. It kind of depends on how much gear you've got out. If you've got an MA2 Lite and a command wing out, to make up for the fact that you may not have that light if it ever goes down, you know, that's when you talk about adding an NPU into your distro rack. But keep that, just, you know, be thinking about that. I'm not wild about the ultralight. I've had too many problems with it. It's not even about where the screens are and what they've taken out. It's like, for some reason, MA2 ultralights have failed on me way more than anything else. And now I'm just superstitious about it. So we're going to be taking an MA2 Lite. No problems there. Their dimmers, we're not going to be using dimming if I can get away with it, because dimmers are heavy. And, you know, it's a lot of power. It's a lot of cabling. You can be a lot lighter weight if you're going without dimmers. Their distros are a little bit interesting. Their distros are all 208 volt. So if you're working with a 3-phase power, if you know you're working with 3-phase power, you got to be thinking about that. They'll knock two of the 120 volt phases together and you'll get 208 volts. It's just kind of the way the math works out. It's a little bit interesting. So be thinking about what you're going to get in terms of your distros. They come in these crazy road cases. They got a half and a full size. For a floor package rig like this, I'm going to try and keep it to a 30-way, the half one, and then get a full-size road case and then put all my networking gear in there. So I have one big rack that's all lighting. How you're going to get from console to your rig is going to depend on your rig itself. For me personally, I like to use SACN from front of house over. Depending on what rig you have, it's going to determine your snake. For me, for an octo node, you know, I'm going to be running Cat 5. If I'm going to be doing super long runs, if I know I'm doing bigger shows, if I'm doing like a shed or arena tour, I will more than likely involve a fiber switch, because you can get a whole lot of redundancy that way. And they've got all the things, you know, we'll talk about that as we get in further down the line. You know, be thinking about cable as you go. We're going to talk about cable. Like I said at the get-go of this is not just about programming a song and making it look cool in Wysiwyg or in whatever your CAD model of choice is. We are going to be talking about what it takes to put this on the road. And so you got to be thinking about your cable package. You got to be thinking about how heavy cables are. Cables weigh a lot. If you're doing a small ground package, you know, don't take 4 out on the road. Take number 2. You know, things like that. We'll get into all that, and be smart about road cases. Christie Lights is one of those vendors, and God love them for it. Everything goes in its own road case most of the time. Like if you order like truss bolts and a hammer, or a truss bolts and a set of tools, you're going to get it in an ammo can in a road case. It's just the way they do things, and it works for them because they've got road cases for days. I think I saw like 100,000 plus road cases in their inventory lines. It's wild. So yeah, that covers the vendor for the most part. And we'll dig into that further along as we go. So, we are here. We have put our band in initially. We have our main template that we're going to be using. So we're going to add it all back in. So here's our template show. We are going to run MA. We're going to be running the song through Reaper. And we're going to get everything back in. I will show you all how that goes as we get down the line. I'm going to pause right now. If there's any questions in chat about what it is we're trying to get done, and anything you want to see. Once we get into the streams about designing the show, I want to get input from you guys. I want you guys to be part of the design too. So feel free to toss in some questions and stuff as we go along. Is that a real planning, or did that show already happen? Okay, Cedric, you're a little you popped in a bit behind the curve on this one. No big deal. You had stuff to do. So what we're doing in this is we are working with a band called Sweettalker. They're a local band here in Nashville. I've known them for a little while. They're great guys. They're a great sound. And what we're going to be doing is kind of simulating from start to finish of getting a tour ready to go on the road. So, whereas you've seen a ton of guys do design videos, where they just kind of show you the previs, and I've done that a lot. I've got a ton of those. We're going to be getting a lot more in the nitty gritty of not just design, but prep, planning, thinking about trailer space, thinking about budgets, thinking about artist input. Artist input is something that kind of gets ignored on the videos that we're seeing from lighting designers and programmers, including myself. So I'm trying to remedy that for me. And so today's stream, which we're going to be, I don't want to say we're circling for landing, but we're going to answer chat for a while. We're going to talk more about how it's going to go, but we're going to go from zero to tour. Next week, we are going to be having Dave Brown, the singer for Sweettalker, on the stream, and he's going to be telling me what he wants to see from his light package, what he has in mind. The vibe he wants, the emotions he's looking for, the stuff he wants to see. With a band like that, we're making it more about the band than we are about the light show. We are, great lighting designer, LD programmer, a guy named Graham Hicks, gave me some advice a while back and said, a lighting design is a lot like salt. You got to season to taste, and it's real easy to over salt. And you're walking a tightrope. So we're going to be going from the very beginning of that, going through picking our fixtures, picking out what's going to fit into a trailer, what's going to fit onto a small stage, because you have to be thinking about, here on this previs and on my template here, we're talking about a Sam 750. We're talking about a 70-foot wide by 56-foot deep stage. You're not going to get that in a theater and a club. Yeah, that's what I'm using for this design here, but you're not going to see that. You're going to see you might be seeing a 48 wide by 25 deep, and what are you going to do? Are you going to be able to squish it down in time, or in a way that works? So we're going to be talking about all that. And you guys let me know. It may make more sense to redesign the venue to make something that's a little bit more realistic to what we're doing here, which I'm happy to do. We can do it here in Wysiwyg, and it won't take that long. It's just tossing in some surfaces and walls and all that. But yeah, that's kind of the thing. While we're here, are there any questions from the chat, guys? Cedric, I know you were catching up, but we're back now. And if I'm not seeing any, we may want to call this one. We've been going for about 90 minutes now. This is not the 8-hour stream that I did a few weeks back. That hurt. I'm not going to do those again, unless something goes really wrong again, like last time. Wysiwyg noob here. Yes, you can import SketchUp items. It kind of, you have to be pretty careful about what format you used. I'm not a SketchUp guy. I just, didn't deal with it when I was doing CAD. When I was doing like straight CAD, I was using AutoCAD or Vectorworks. Now that I'm on Wysiwyg, for my shows, I'm not really needing to worry about that. I'm not importing a lot of complex CAD items. This is more about the lighting design than it is about the set design. Again, the reason being is that these are the shows I get, where I get my work. This is where I make my money, is doing, sheds, theaters, and clubs. I don't do a lot of big arena shows, and I damn sure don't do stadium shows. I'm not at that level yet, so, down the line, gotta be great. But for right now, I'm trying to stay closer to a small to mid-level kind of vibe. Yeah, thanks, Jeremiah. Yeah, there's a lot of guys who want to do fancy things in their workflows. They want to do fancy is a wrong word, it's pejorative, but like they do really complicated things. Really complicated show files in MA, really complicated CAD files, and I'm not about that life. I want to go fast, and sometimes making it complicated can make it go fast. But in my case, for the most part, no, it doesn't work like that for me. So we keep it simple. So right now we've got our band here. You can look at them, you can not, we can take them away. We've got our template fixtures. That's what we're going to be using as our clone rig. So once we get into MA, we're going to be looking at the cloning process and setting yourself up for real easy, quick, simple clones. You can merge any file from any site if it's in the right floor mate. Yes, floor mate. That is true. But Chad, just like anything, every application that imports stuff has its foibles. Wysiwyg does not like super complicated geometry. You can get pretty harsh in it, but if you want to do really, really, really complicated stuff, you better have one beast of a machine running behind it, and I don't. A little bit off topic, what is your process to make connections and network to get shows? That is a whole stream video conversation in and of itself. The short version is I started knowing bands and working with bands. I started working with production companies as a stagehand and then a lighting tech. And then I was made LD for some shows. Other people liked seeing the shows I was designing and directing. And a couple of guys took some chances on me. And God bless them to put me on the road. And, I worked my ass off there, did all the crap jobs on tour, did all the hard work and none of the glory. And, then you kind of wait for your next opportunity. And then it's about making friends and knowing, as you meet LDs, you start building your network. As you work in different venues, you get to know all the different house LDs. A lot of these house LDs are also tour LDs. They are not just sitting in that venue all the time. They're there. A lot of those guys are there because their regular jam, their tour, is not on the road at this moment. A million years ago, probably not that long, like 2 or 3 years ago, I got hired in just as an hourly guy to come in and help prep a tour for a guy named Jason Lapine. And he was and God willing still is the LD for All Time Low. And got brought in to do this thing for him, and worked my butt off and made sure I was on time, confident, knew what I was getting into, didn't make, worked really hard to make it, easy for him to take the rig I built him out on tour. And, he was nice enough to tell his people that it was really good, and I got called to do a different thing. Off of his recommendation. You get a lot of recommendations that way. Working with other people, one of the if you were in any part of the stream before, my favorite tech in the world, a guy named Chris Hudson, who I'll, forever, I want him on my bus forever. Hudson, I got on a recommendation. I never met him until we started prepping. We had a couple of quick phone calls, and just to get a feel for how his vibe was, and kind of check in on his level of competence. I got to make sure that somebody knows what they're talking about, and then it just turned into a stud, and it was off of a more or less a blind recommendation. So there's a little bit of luck. There's a little bit of knowing your guys. It's about maintaining your relationships all the time. And it's one of the hard things to do because we're on the road all the time. So you can get into your own little world of this is our tour and this is my focus. And then forget that you still have friends and family you got to keep in touch with, even though you're working, 17-hour days on a tour. It's the great balancing act. I know a couple of guys who have managers, and their managers get them hired. I know a couple of guys who work for vendors, and that's where they get their gigs from. Most of the guys who come into lighting worked for the vendors at one point or another, did a gig for the vendor, got brought in as a tech or a crew chief for a band as the vendor representative on the tour, and then that band needed an LD for one gig, and they went, oh, he knows the show, he knows how it all works. You call him and have him come in for that one or two off and knock that out, and then then 4 months down the line, the LD they had decided to come off the road, got an offer he couldn't refuse from a dream band of his, or who knows, even got fired, whatever. And then they want to make that seamless. They're going to call somebody they know. And if you've been on the road with them for a long time and they know you and they're comfortable with you and they've seen you do their show, and they know you can bring it, you can do it, and they might give you a call. It's a ton of things. So Peruta, that's the not so short version, but trust me, it's a lot longer. So we're now at 11:30. We've been going for about 90 minutes. I think I'm going to call that one. These aren't meant to be super, super long streams. I've got somewhere I've got to be in a couple hours anyways, but next week we're going to be talking to David Brown from Sweettalker about his ideas and what he wants to see for his show. Before we go, we're going to listen to the tune one more again, and we'll settle it out. So let's, first of all, we'll change here so we can talk to you guys. Hey, everybody. So we're going to listen to the tune one more time, and then I think we'll call it a good morning, good afternoon for the Europeans, and we'll get crushing. So here we go. We're just going to jump cut, pow, and start playing. And let me know if this is way too loud, but we should be all right. So, guys, if you... Let's see, I can help this down just a little bit. There we go. So, the plan is we're going to keep these same times. We're going to keep it Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central. That's GMT minus 6. So, we're going to be going at this pretty much until it's done. There's no built-in schedule on this. Like, I'm not saying, like... You know, we're going to have these pieces done by, by Christmas. Like, it's probably going to go way past that. But I want to make sure that we cover all the bases. I don't want to just kind of gloss over pieces. I want to go slow. I want to make sure everybody who wants to be in this world, who wants to be doing these kind of shows can get an idea of what this is actually like. And Cedric, yes, you're doing the promo for me. Down there, hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed these streams, if you enjoyed the videos, hit like, get subscribed, all that stuff. I'm not making money on this. This is just kind of a thing for me because when I come back on the road, I want to be working with good guys. I don't want to be working with crap LDs, and I don't want to have to hear horror stories from house techs and house guys about things that went wrong with the tour last week. I want you guys to all be successful. So, I love this, like, super floaty bridge. There's, like, this awesome Beatles vibe in there. And come on, y'all. That's a flute solo in a pop song. That's just so rad. Yeah, they do. And like I was, Cedric, you missed it, but I don't want to do, I didn't want to do an EDM band for this, or an EDM act. I wanted to put a band on the stage, and all the things that goes along with that. Backline, amplifiers, drum kits, not just a riser in the middle with a dude standing there. Because, that, frankly, it's not restrictive enough for the real world. When you work with a band like OAR, there's 7 guys in the band and they want to be spread out. And you got to be, ready to do that. So, oh, I love that long, good fade out too. Oh, that's fantastic. All right, guys. Well, we are into our... we're into that 90 minutes in. I'm hoping I can keep these around 90 minutes, 2 hours. There may be a few when we get into, like, the deep programming sessions where it's going to be, like, marathon, like, whatever. But we're one of the things we're not doing is we're not going to be doing, like, planning for a 12-song set. We're gonna be doing one song because that part is what you repeat. And, maybe we'll get into a second to talk about, like, keeping things fresh and making things cohesive and still different song to song. One of the things that happens when you do these videos on, particularly for YouTube, is you make this huge design, and then you got one song that you're programming and you use the whole rig, and you just blow it out all over the place. And that's not how you would do it in the real world. Like, there's some songs where you wouldn't take, like, even if you built a good rig, you wouldn't use the whole thing. Watch guys like, or bands like the 1975 Nine Inch Nails. Nine Inch Nails do it so well, of using not the whole rig all the time. And it's a thing I've struggled with. I've had a hard time with it because it's so easy to want to, oh yes, let's make it all super huge. But if it's all super huge, then it's all the same. So that's kind of the deal there. We're going to call this one for the day. So thank you guys so much for coming in. I know it was kind of a little bit quicker to the cut than the last one I've done. But we're going to keep going with these until we have a whole bunch of fantastic LDs and techs ready to go on the road. So that's the deal. Happy programming, y'all. Enjoy your day. Uh, Stay safe out there. Wear a mask. You know, take care of each other. Because the faster we can get over all this stuff, the faster we can all get back to work, and I can see you guys in person at all the shows, and you know, be able to make videos of showing you what my tour rigs look like in real life and not just on, CAD. So, take care, you guys. Have a good one.